My guest here today is Breanna J Wilson. She's a traveler and writer, and as I know her from her Instagram page, she's such a badass businesswoman and creator who is running tours in Mongolia. And Brianna is a creator of Meanwhile in Mongolia, a website dedicated to provide cultural insights and travel guides in Mongolia. And I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Hi, it's so nice to be here and to speak to you as well.
Thank you for being here and making the time. Let's start with the story behind the creation of Meanwhile in Mongolia. And can you share what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so when I first moved to Ulaanbaatar, I couldn't find any information on a lot of basic things. So, as a journalist and a person who writes about travel and cultures around the world, I decided I should just start in my own backyard, and I started just writing basic travel guides that sort of provided all of that insight that I had learned, usually the hard way. So that kind of just became my baby. Meanwhile, in Mongolia became the site where I would just write about, the things that I learned, how I did basic things like get a SIM card or, the places I would go on the weekends, the restaurants that I liked, basic stuff like that. It's still a growing site. I still have a lot more content to add to it, and I'm constantly tweaking the content that is up there just to make sure it's all up to date. But yeah, it's my baby, so be sure to check it out if you're coming to Mongolia. If you have anything that you want me to add, I'm always happy to do that as well. But yeah, I just keep adding information as I go, and hopefully it can answer a lot of people's basic travel questions. That's kind of the goal of it.
I thought the contents were really like thoughtful and culturally also conscious. And for example, like gift giving culture. And that was really interesting to read as a Mongolian. And also, there is a very extensive must read book lists. And that was also very impressive. And some of the books I have never seen. And I thought, oh, okay, I should read these books. And
Oh,
really, really
good.
interesting.
Good. Yeah, like I said, I try to keep adding so the list keep growing, and as more people send me recommendations or I make discoveries, I add it to each of the guides that are on there. So it's a ever evolving website.
Mhm. And when did you first move to Mongolia and
I
why?
first I first started coming here in 2018. I came as a tourist, just like anybody else. I really had no idea what to expect. And the first time I came to go visit the Teton tribe. For anybody who doesn't know, that's the tribe that, herds and rides reindeer in the northern part of the country. And as soon as I came here, I realized this is kind of a different place. It was a different beast. It was unlike any other place or culture I had been to. And it just kind of captivated me. As a travel writer, I have seen a lot of places. I've been to a lot of cities. I've done a lot of adventures, but nothing kind of compared to that first impression and that first sort of adventure that I had here. So I kept finding excuses and reasons to come back. And yeah, they just kept getting longer and longer, my stays. And now I live here almost full time. I usually spend about 8 months a year here. So I really can't see myself living anywhere else except for here right now. So I'm very happy that this is where I call home at these days.
Oh, wow. So when you first come to Mongolia, like where did you find about Mongolia? And what made you the decision to travel to Mongolia and to, did you say the Tag people, Doha people?
Yeah, so I actually Mongolia was not really on my radar. I don't have a reason why. It just wasn't a place that, I was even considering traveling to until about a month before I came here. I basically was introduced to somebody who, had lived here and was running tours here. And as soon as I sort of met him and I saw the culture through his eyes, I kind of became captivated as well. So once I saw that, I wanted to experience it for myself and see if it was the real deal, see if it lived up to what he was saying. And as soon as I got here, I realized it was so much more than what he even sort of portrayed online or what I started to read and dig into. But yeah, it wasn't like Mongolia was always on my bucket list. It wasn't a place that I had felt this connection to long ago. But as soon as I came here, I just knew that this was sort of a place I was meant to be. So it was kind of interesting how it all worked out.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting story. So, as you work with tourists and running tours, for you, what are the some common misconceptions about Mongolia that you often encounter, and how do you address them on your platform?
Most people have no idea what to expect, especially about Ulaanbaatar. I mean, I get questions like if I live in a yurt or if I have electricity, if I, it's kind of funny to me, but people just really don't know. So, I do show a lot of countryside content and, living with the nomads and sort of being in that remote sort of countryside setting. But I would also, and I'm trying to show more of this, is maybe more of the city life and what's going on here and what the young people are doing and, how cool and urban it is and how it's developing and how it's changing rapidly. Just the city in general is super interesting and the transition that it's currently going through, especially with elections coming up and what's been developing here and the startup culture and just lots of cool underground things that people don't know about. So that's also something I would like to get sort of more on people's minds is Ulaanbaatar as a destination and not just Mongolia as a whole.
Exactly. I wish that people would want to travel to see Ulaanbaatar. And I saw that you
Yeah.
announced like a digital nomad week tour, and I thought that was very interesting. So could you provide insights into those tours that you announced? And actually, these particular experiences caught my attention, and I'm curious to know what kind of experience do you aim to create for the participants?
Yeah. So this year will be the first year that I'm doing both a digital nomad week and a women's retreat. For the Digital Nomad Week, I wanted
Mm,
to invite people to Ulaanbaatar and to give them a reason to come sort of discover a different side of the city. So instead of just making it a week in the city as a straight up tour, I wanted to make it especially for digital nomads and people who maybe couldn't disconnect for a week and do a week in remote Mongolia, but they could still get here and still get an idea for what the culture is, what the people are like, what's happening here. So during that week, it's the first week in June, I will spend the week with basically a group of digital nomads. We will co-work during the day in one of the spaces in the city. And then my goal is to introduce them to people in their fields, anyone that could be a connection for them. And then for, the locals here, maybe introduce them to these digital nomads and these travelers and also introduce a side of Mongolia to them. So I'll take them out to Terrelj for a day, get them on horses, do the quintessential Mongolia stuff. But yeah, it's geared towards people who maybe can't disconnect totally for a week, but still want to come see a side of Mongolia that's, interesting and that other people won't get to experience. And for the
mhm.
women's retreat, that I'm hoping to get about 20 to 25 women. And what we will do, we
Wow.
will go up to a lodge in the north that can basically accommodate us, and we'll stay there for the week. And during that week, we will go visit some of the eagle hunter families in that area. We will learn about traditional singing. We will learn about traditional Mongolian dance. Hopefully, we get a calligrapher to come up and teach us how to do Mongolian calligraphy. I'd like to do cooking classes and cooking lessons. It's basically instead of us going out to the countryside and traveling between nomadic families, it's basically bringing all of those experiences to us and doing it in a way that's still totally authentic and totally, you know, the same experience as you would receive if you were traveling around, but without all of the driving or without, constantly having to be on the road. And then also getting to know a group of ladies that are, solo travelers or travelers that maybe don't have someone else that's as adventurous as them that wants to come to Mongolia. This is the chance for women to sort of do that. Um, And yeah, I mean, it's attracting women from all around the world at this point. So it should be a super interesting group of individuals that come together in a very special experience.
Wow, that sounds so cool. Women only retreat sounds so interesting because I also agree with your idea that Mongolian countryside can be such a good destination for like retreat, maybe for like a spiritual tour or like spiritual like a detoxing travel, something like that. So I really
Yeah,
hope that will also expose Mongolia in a new perspective also.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
for you, since 2018, what were the most memorable experience for you while you lived and traveled in Mongolia?
I think uh, hosting tours has been probably the most memorable and also the most meaningful. To have people trust me to show them this country, and I'm not in any way trying to act Mongolian or pretend that I understand the culture. I still learn during each tour. But that's why I bring translators and guides and involve families and involve as many locals as possible. I just kind of act as the intermediary and the fixer to kind of put everyone together to make sure things kind of go smoothly. But to watch people experience this country, it never gets old, and it kind of reminds me of the first experience I had, and to have that feeling time and time again, it's really special. So yeah, so I really do love that part of what I've created and what I do these days.
And which part or destination in Mongolia has a special place in your heart?
Uh, I spend a lot of time in Elsintasarchai and also in the Orhan Valley, and
Hmm.
I think that those two places are really special to me. And it's not just because they are absolutely beautiful or that the camels are stunning or there's always wild horses or semi wild horses running around. It's really the people that are in those places and the connections that I've kind of made. And, I kind of go back to the same families in those areas. So to do that year after year, it kind of, has really solidified those places as having a very special place in my heart. So I will continue to go back every year, visit those families and visit those places, and hopefully I can take more and more people with me as I do.
Hmm. Also, what is your favorite time of the year that you like to be in Mongolia? Like, which season do you like the most?
Okay, I have to admit that September is my absolute favorite because everything turns this like beautiful shade of gold, and the leaves start to change and they're this deep red and orange. So September is always my absolute favorite month. I usually try to do a lot of traveling by myself that month. But now that I'm back in winter, winter's starting to grow on me here. It is tough. It is very cold, but if you're prepared for it, it's absolutely beautiful. And the cool thing about Mongolia is each season kind of gives you a very different experience. And so even when you go to one place in summer and you go back in winter, it's like going back to a totally different place. So I'm looking forward to kind of discovering some of the places that I normally go in summer again this winter. So
Can you share some travel tips or advice for people, those who are like starting to planning their travel? So, especially for first time visitors, can you give some advice?
yeah, so this year is going to be especially busy. The tourism board for the Ministry of Culture has announced 2024 and 2025 as the years to visit. So I have been recommending to people that they book as far in advance as possible. So that's either flights or tours, or if they want to rent a car or book a hotel. I recommend people do that as soon as possible, especially if they plan to come this summer. Like July is always the busiest month. Um, so that's my number one tip this year. And then the next thing I would tell people is to consider visiting in winter. So winter is the off season here. It's not busy tourism wise. Not a lot of people are brave enough to come, stand in 25-degree temperatures, but there are plenty of things to do in winter, like dog sledding. You can still go visit the Teton tribe. You can, still go see a lot of these sites, and you can see snow on the sand dunes in the Gobi. You can find guides easier. You can find drivers easier. Hotel rates are cheaper. So I think winter is the next sort of secret time to get here.
I totally agree with that. And as you said, if you're prepared enough, it's going to be completely worth it in the winter.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned that next 2 years until 2025, it will be like years to visit Mongolia. And the ministry and the government is trying to revive the travel industry. It's actually working and gaining popularity as a travel destination, as I see. As an industry, how do you see and imagine the future of Mongolian tourism?
Yeah, I mean, the response to what the Ministry of Culture has been, pushing for has been great, and people are very excited to come. It's opened a lot of sort of opportunities for people to come with the visa restrictions being lifted. I do hope that there are more flight paths in the future. That would be something that I think would really open up a lot of tourism opportunities here. Um, but what I see makes me super excited. It seems like people here are embracing what is, how the tourism industry is changing and how it's developing. People are putting into place, a little bit more infrastructure. They're starting to think more about, long term sustainability instead of just short term sort of, you know, getting the money and running. So that's nice to see, is that people are actually thinking about, how they can create a strategic sort of long-term plan for, tourism and getting clients and guests and repeat guests, which is a very important thing for tourism, is to have people return and to have a nice experience also while they're here, so that they tell their friends and tell their family. So I think that the future of tourism is great. It seems like everyone is still embracing the culture, the traditions, the nomadic lifestyle. That's not going to change anytime soon. It is obviously changing by, you know, now herders have cell phones and there's more cellular access around the country and stuff like that. But, that's inevitable. It's going to happen anyways. So that's why I always tell people to get here sooner rather than later. But I do think that the essence of Mongolia will always be here. So that makes me very proud and very happy. So I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Did you work with travelers who are returning after they visited Mongolia?
I haven't had any personally, but last year was kind of my first big tourism season, I should say. But I am in contact with a lot of the people that I have hosted last year, and we talk regularly, and they tell me that they want to come back, and so that's what I'm trying to create, these new opportunities like the women's retreat and, new sort of itineraries that they could come back and experience. So yeah, everyone has had a positive experience, and they've all told me that they've dreamt of coming back, and they have the calligraphy that we did together, hanging on their walls, and they sent me pictures of that, of it being framed, and or of them wearing maybe something that they bought here, like their cashmere, or if they bought a Dell and they're wearing it. So yeah, most people that have come here, they understood how special and how magical it is. But yeah, hopefully I can get them all back soon. That's my goal.
And again, back to the travel industry in Mongolia, what do you think are the challenges and the potentials of the industry?
I mean, the biggest challenge with hosting travelers here in Mongolia is definitely the infrastructure. We don't have roads that go to a lot of the major tourist attractions. We don't have a lot of flights that come in every day. We have like 3 flights from Istanbul a week, and that's it. As far as that flight path goes, we also have flights from Frankfurt and Beijing and Seoul, but they're very limited. So it's hard to get here. So that's the hardest. That's one hard problem and one issue that we need to sort of find a solution for, to really rapidly grow the tourism industry here. And like I said, the infrastructure. Um, I mean, once we sort of face some of these basic challenges and get these things, or at least a plan, for them to be developed, or, resolved in some way, I think that the potential of tourism here is huge. I lived part time in Georgia, the country. When I wasn't here, I used to escape to Tbilisi for the winters, and I've watched their tourism grow. They get 9 million tourists a year, and they're a country of 3 million people. So I've watched how they've sort of brought in budget flights and, multiple flights a day. They have like over 300 flights coming in each day from around the world. I've seen how they've sort of developed, you know, on the ground and what sort of tourism initiatives they've put in place and how they've sort of grown at a organic sort of way, at an organic level. So I'm hoping that Mongolia sort of follows that same path because I think we can, maybe not 9 million visitors. That's pretty aggressive. I know the goal here is 2 million visitors a year. But it would be nice if we could get close to that because we're nowhere near that now. But like I said, we need sort of the infrastructure and the basic things before we can get that far.
Yes, and I also agree the hardest thing is to get to Mongolia and also get around in the countryside. And I also saw your reels just driving in the countryside, and I also heard that you just drive yourself alone in the countryside, and that's so cool. How do you do that? And like, what was the experience for you?
Yeah, I've been driving here solo for the last couple summers. Um, Last year, I actually drove here from Tbilisi. So now I have my own car here, which
Oh
is
wow!
nice. But yeah, anytime I have free time, I like to go scout new routes or meet new families or just see new places that I haven't seen. So now that I have a car here, it's a Land Cruiser 78. I call it Troopy because it's troop carrier car. So I take that out. I have it all built out so I can sleep in it. It has, a hot water heater. I have all my kitchen stuff in it. It's
Oh,
basically a home on wheels. So I basically take that
mm,
out and try to explore as much as possible. But it is sort of scary to be alone out there sometimes, because yeah, there aren't really great roads, or if there are roads, sometimes they're full of potholes, and getting a flat tire is not out of the question. So I definitely had to make sure I was comfortable, changing a tire or understanding basic car issues before I did sort of take off by myself. I feel pretty confident now, but I've also realized you're never really alone in Mongolia.
mm.
There's always a herder peeking around a corner somewhere or on top of a hill with a monocular looking at you. So it's never as dire of a situation as it might seem. But yeah, I try to go out as prepared as possible. I think that that's the key to that.
You're very brave. But just driving solo and also the road trip is the best thing to do in Mongolia for me. I also
Oh,
like that.
it is. It's the best way to see the country. And
Yeah.
motorcycle or car, either way, those are the best ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you share some hidden gems or lesser known destinations in Mongolia that you would recommend to travelers and also in Ulaanbaatar too?
Yeah. So my goal this year is actually to start to head east. I haven't really discovered anything east, and I think that that is a very untouched and undiscovered part of the country. Um, I don't really know what to expect there. I haven't really heard much, so my plan is just at one point to get my car and drive. Um, but as far as the next big destination in Mongolia goes, or the lesser known place that I think has potential, I think that Hovt over in the
Mm.
west would be uh, some place that tourists should pay more attention to. I think that it is just a stunning landscape, and you have all of the quintessential Mongolian, culture and traditional things happening over there as well. So it shouldn't be overlooked. As far as things going on in Ulaanbaatar, I'm starting to get more into the cultural side of things, as far as like the opera goes, and the ballet. So those are two things that I would like to
Yeah.
do
Mm.
more this winter, since the season is only in the winter. But yeah, I mean, there's always something happening here. There's always a new concert or a new sort of festival going on. Like Sippy Top was great last year, so I'm looking forward to that again this year. Playtime Festival is always great. That's like our Coachella. So that stuff is always, on my radar, and always stuff I try to check out if I'm in town. But yeah, I think that people don't really expect those things coming from Mongolia, but they should definitely be paying attention to them. So
And as you said in UB, I also agree with like going to the ballet and opera is one of the best things because I think the quality and the skill of the dancers and singers are really good, and also it can be really cheap comparing to the going to ballet and opera in other countries. And I love that. Thanks for bringing
Yes.
that up, actually.
Yes, I love doing it too. And then you get all dressed up and you see everybody else all dressed up. It's so nice. It's such a nice evening. I always have fun
It
when I do
is.
that.
Yeah. So, lastly, how would you describe Mongolia and also Mongolians, maybe separately, in 3 words?
I think I'll do all together because I think they're going to be the same 3 words. But 3 words that definitely come to mind are welcoming, warm, and proud. Mongolians are very proud, and it shows when you enter someone's home and the way they treat their guests, and you know you feel very special here, and that's because they're very proud of their culture and what they have to offer, and yeah, you feel that. I like that.
Thank you so much for your time. And what are your plans for Tagasar for next few days? What are you planning to do?
Well, today I went over to Gunda Monastery because I know that the chanting starts and I wasn't sure what time. So the chanting
Mm,
starts tonight at 10 p.m. and then what they basically do is 24 hours of chanting. So I went to go see if that had started yet. It hadn't. But over the next few days, just try to go visit some families that I know and some people that I know. And then actually on Sunday, I'm gonna take the train and head down to the eastern part of the Gobi to Shambhala and go to that. They call it an energy center. I don't really know what to expect. I'm kind of just I saw it and I realized that it was a very important thing for Buddhists to do. It's like a important pilgrimage, is what I'm told. So I'm gonna take the overnight train down to Stenshamn, and
mhm.
then yeah, go to Shambhala, and then there's also a monastery right there. And then I'm hoping to meet some more families down there, and then I'll take the overnight train back up to UB, and that's basically my second star.
Yeah, Shambhala we call a energy center. That is also a very special place. I hope you will feel like some kind of different spiritual energy when you are there. And I wish you really nice Tansar time. And thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. And if you'd like to keep up with Mongolia, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and everywhere else. Хамт байсан маш их баярлалаа. Баяртай.